Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're taking a trip to 7th grade science class.
Oh, now that brings back memories. Some good, some maybe not so good.
Right. But no Bunsen burners or safety goggles this time. We're tackling acids, bases, and you might be surprised to learn.
They're in your kitchen.
Exactly. This textbook we're using, it's like opening up a whole pantry of chemical reactions. Who knew cooking was so scientific?
It really is. We interact with these concepts every day without even realizing it.
Yeah, like who thinks about the citric acid in their lemon juice when they're adding it to their iced tea?
Or the acetic acid in their vinegar when they're making salad dressing.
It's wild, but those are acids, right? What about bases? The book also mentions baking soda, which is a completely different beast.
Totally different. And you can tell just from their basic properties, acids have that sour taste. Think lemons, vinegar.
Okay, got it, sour.
Bases, on the other hand, they're going to taste bitter, and they have this kind of slippery feel.
Slippery like soap.
Exactly. Soap is a great example of a base. And that slippery feeling, that's actually a chemical reaction happening between the base and the oils on your skin.
No way. So every time I wash my hands, it's like a mini science experiment. But hold on, we can't exactly go around tasting everything to find out if it's an acid or a base, right?
Definitely not. That's where our trusty indicators come into play.
You mean like litmus paper?
Exactly. It's like a color-changing magic trick, but instead of pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
You get to see if something is an acid or a base. Red for acid, blue for base.
It's really quite elegant when you think about it, a simple color change to tell us so much about a substance.
And it's not just fancy lab equipment either. Our textbook even has an activity using turmeric paper. Turmeric, like the spice.
The very same. It acts as an indicator, changing color depending on whether it comes into contact with an acid or a base. Imagine explaining that connection a few hundred years ago.
That your curry spice could reveal the secrets of chemistry. Now that's a dinner party conversation starter. And speaking of connections, our textbook also has this handy-dandy table of common acids and bases we find every day.
Yeah, like that tartness in grapes. Did you know that's tartaric acid?
Really? I had no idea. I just thought they tasted good.
And it's not just for taste. They actually use tartaric acid in baking powder, too.
Wow, the more you know, right?
Yeah.
But it's not all sunshine and grapes. This textbook also talks about ant bites. And get this.
The pain?
Yeah, it's not just a bite. It's formic acid being injected under your skin.
Like a tiny little chemistry attack.
Right. Crazy. And speaking of acids, didn't we talk about citric acid earlier?
We did. It's in a lot of citrus fruits, but this textbook also mentions amla. It's a fruit they use a lot in Indian cuisine, I think. And get this, it's packed with ascorbic acid.
Ascorbic acid? Wait a minute, isn't that just vitamin C?
Yep, the very same.
Wild. So we've got acids in our food, in insects, even in cleaning products. It really is everywhere. But what happens when, say, an acid and a base mix?
Ah, you're talking about neutralization.
Right. Neutralization, that's what the textbook called it.
It's basically like a chemical balancing act. When an acid and a base get together, they react and kind of cancel each other out.
So they neutralize each other.
Exactly. The textbook gives the example of heartburn. You know when you take an antacid?
Yeah, those chalky tablets.
Well, those are a base, and they neutralize the excess acid in your stomach.
So it's like a chemical truce to settle your upset stomach.
Precisely.
And it's not just for heartburn, right? The book says neutralization is used for all sorts of things, like treating acidic soil so plants can grow.
It's true. It's also how they neutralize that formic acid from ant bites. Ever heard of putting baking soda on an ant bite?
Oh, yeah. My grandma used to do that. Never knew why, though.
That's neutralization in action.
Mm-hmm.
They even use it on a larger scale to treat factory waste before it's released into the environment.
Wow, that's incredible. Who knew a simple chemical reaction could be so versatile? You know, we've covered a lot of ground here, but I almost feel like we're just scratching the surface.
I know what you mean. There's always more to explore.
Speaking of surfaces, it's kind of freaky when you realize our own bodies even rely on acids.
Absolutely. They're not just external things. The textbook actually has a whole section on it. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah. It says each of our cells has DNA. What does DNA stand for again?
Deoxyribonucleic acid, and it's acidic. Like DNA, the blueprint of life, it's built on acids.
Well, I never thought about it like that. And what about those amino acids? I hear about those all the time.
Those too. Our bodies use those to build proteins, which we need for basically everything. Muscles, immune system, the whole shebang.
So we need acids to literally build and power our bodies. That's kind of wild when you think about it.
It really is. And don't forget about fatty acids. Those are key for, well, fats, which we need for energy and insulation.
It's incredible. We started with a 7th grade science book, And now I feel like I'm looking at the whole world in a whole new way.
That's the beauty of knowledge, right? Opens up all these new perspectives. But it also makes you think, like, we just talked about how important acids are in our bodies.
Yeah,
So what does that mean for, say, health and nutrition? How can we use this knowledge to make sure things are balanced?
That's a good question. It's
Yeah.
like every answer just leads to more questions.
Exactly. That's what makes it so fascinating.
Well, sadly, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Already.
Yeah, but hey, we learned a lot. And who knew something as simple as acids and bases could be so interesting?
Right. They really are everywhere when you start to notice them.
And who knows, maybe our listeners will be inspired to do a little kitchen chemistry of their own.
I hope so. Maybe try out that turmeric paper experiment. It's a fun one.
It really is. Well, on that note, we'll catch you all next time for another deep dive.